Good morning, everyone. Our office at UNESCO Santiago wants to welcome you to this webinar, which is the first in a series of conversations we will have for the transformation and innovation in education. This is an initiative that was born from based on the ODS to accelerate the goals for the ODS 4. We're calling this project ARTIE because it is close to the word art, and we understand that this is a way to promote inclusive and education in our region. This is a collaborative process since the beginning, when we proposed a diagnosis in which the ministries of education took part. And the landmark was the workshop that some of you might remember, which happened in Bogota in December 2023. Since then, we had our International Institute for Planning of Education and the support of several partners like Santa Maria Foundation and others that are together with us. This regional alliance wants to be a network of networks according to the needs of the countries, to have a space to drive education in an articulated, coordinated, and sustainable way. We're trying to strengthen the capacities of ministries, improve teacher training, and maintain a culture of innovation and collaboration that allows us to drive the transformation in our educational systems in a context in which in Latin America we have a reality of deep differences, and it hasn't always been easy to ensure the right to education. Within what we understand as innovation, the digital transformation has a very important role, and it's not it's a condition. And we must ask ourselves not whether we should integrate technologies, but how to do it in a strategic manner with ethics and a deep sense of equity and belonging, always bringing students to the center of the ecosystem together with the teachers, without always keeping in mind that education is a relational experience. In this seminar, we're sharing with you that we're also starting the course Digital Talent for the Transformation and Innovation in Education. We're trying to help contribute to the training of strategic leaderships that may plan and drive this transformation. It's a great pleasure for us to share with you that we're starting this process with the presence of delegates from 33 countries, and this motivates us. And we thank you for trusting in UNESCO and this proposal. We are greatly thankful for your presence, and we will now share a message from Valtencier Mendes, who is the Chief of Education at UNESCO Santiago, who will give us a broader view of this alliance. Good morning, everyone. I am Valtencier Mendes, the Chief of Education at the Regional Office of UNESCO in Santiago, which coordinates education in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this course, Digital Talent for Transformation and Education and Innovation. We're developing this course together with the IIEP in Buenos Aires, and as part of an alliance for the innovation and transformation in education. We're going through deep changes. Digitization and AI are redefining the way we learn, the way we teach, and the way we organize our educational systems. At UNESCO, we know that this has to be done with ethics and with human development and the deepest way that we have learned as human beings. We have been working for years in ethics commissions and courses and manuals for AI and technology on the topic of education. In 2021, 194 countries acknowledged and accepted this recommendation by UNESCO for the ethics to have human values, inclusion, and equity in AI. We also have other reports, like the Chain Report, and we have manuals for teachers on AI, manuals for students. And we see that it's possible that AI may support the customization of learning. We know that in our region, there is a social emergency and social. We know that 6 out of 10 kids in sixth grade cannot achieve the minimal competences in reading, mathematics, and sciences. This limits the present and the future of many of our young people. So this digitization and the AI, if well used, could be a part of the solution. So we believe it's very important to learn about AI and to work with it to move forward in this transformation. This alliance, ARTIE, is seeking to follow the countries in this process of a digital transformation. And we have concrete examples of how this has been moving forward. And this course is part of our mission in this network to drive the digital talent of those who lead change within the classrooms and from educational policy. We know transformation doesn't happen by itself. It is led by people who can imagine and lead these new ways to organize our education. In Chile, for example, we've been following up on the Ministry of Education in creating a national plan for digital transformation using UNESCO methodologies like the Digital Transformation Collaborative. And this allows us to have a concrete diagnosis and to have a more coherent and multi-sectorial implementation. What we've learned, and we believe that in Chile and in other countries in the region, this might inspire other processes of a digital transformation. We prepared a very updated bibliography for you with the latest studies, manuals, experiences from UNESCO, who we believe will help you to keep learning apart from this specific experience, because education never ends on a course or a certification. It's a never-ending path of growth, transformation, and development. And today we have the opportunity to use the technologies to reduce the gaps and the inequalities and to make education really meaningful. And in our region, we have lots of talent, such as yours here. We have lots of creativity. And we believe this course might enable or give you some input or some elements to continue this ongoing learning that we all need, most of all in this realm of technologies and artificial intelligence that changes daily. So it is our intention to have this to be a rich input. We have prepared this very updated list of reading materials so you can continue learning throughout your professional careers. Thank you very much and have a wonderful course. Thank you. We'd like to thank Valtens here very much and thank Amparo as well. My name is Fernanda Salvatierra. I'm the coordinator of technologies at UNESCO, and together with Amparo, we'll have the pleasure of moderating this panel. This scenario that Valtens here shows us how the regional the situation has been becoming more complex, and the AI intensifies the need to solve problems in our structure, like fragmentation and governance and the lack of a pedagogical sustain of technologies. So today we want to go beyond the diagnosis and analyze conceptual and practical tools that might help us build policies that will transform the classroom. So our panels have three pillars that are connected to the challenges that we face. First, we're going to talk about the need to have a systemic architecture. Our public policies have always been very fragmented, so we need a whole approach. So Berhin Chakrum is going to introduce us the different pillars of the digital transformation, which is a path for our to overcome the isolated approaches that have limited the impact of investments in the region. Second, we will focus on strategic leadership. No matter how solid, a framework requires leadership for its implementation. And here, Laura Stepanovic will connect the findings of the GEM reports on technology in 2023 and the leadership one on 2024, showing why governance and leadership are key for technology to serve pedagogy and not the other way around, which is a central debate in our countries. And third, we will analyze planning capacities. And we know that for strategies not to become just a theory, the ministerial teams need to have concrete tools. And Mariana Cluselas, drawing on her IIEP's experience, will talk about the situational planning as a way to design policies that are viable, sustainable, and that respond to the realities of our institutional contexts. So it's an honor to have our panel here, Berhin Chakrum, who is the director of the Division of Policies and Systems at UNESCO, Laura Stepanovic, an official of projects at GEM, and Mariana Cluselas, Training Coordination. Our dynamics is going to be a main intervention of 5 minutes, then a reaction of 2 minutes, and a possible closing in 2 minutes. First, Berhin, to start this first pillar on the systemic architecture, we'd like to ask you, what is the key to think about the digital transformation from a whole approach as are proposed by the 6 pillars of the DTC to overcome the fragmentation of policies in the region?
Gracias, Fernando. Buenos dias, bom dia. Very good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. And excuse me, I will be speaking in English in this case. And I think the point you are putting, Fernando, is very important. And it starts with what Amparo and Valtancier Mendes also mentioned. We have noted that many countries are trying to advance the digital transformation, but having what I will call a tinkering approach, meaning picking up a strategy and trying to implement it, connecting schools, for example, the day after training teachers, developing a learning platform without content, then trying to find financing for the digital transformation and for the infrastructure. And in all this, not having a vision and a collaborative framework that can help, having teachers agreeing and engaging, having technical partners participating, having leaders at different levels engaged. So in a way, the lack of systemic approach and having an overall and holistic vision, as Fernando, you mentioned, was something that we have seen in many countries, not only in developing economies, not only in specific countries, but broadly speaking, in many countries all over the world. And that's what triggered for us thinking a bit, what are the elements or the levers that are needed to engage in digital transformation of education? First, let me say that the digital transformation of education should be part of an agenda of the transformation of education in itself. So the digital transformation shouldn't be an objective or a purpose for itself. It's part of a broader agenda. But there are some key pillars that are needed to advance the digital transformation of education. One, and I'm sure that we'll be discussing it later, is about the governance. It's about leadership and vision for the digital transformation. It's about partnership And that's a very important part of the work that many countries are trying to do, depending on their governance system. We had a collaboration with Brazil with the different level of governance. Chile has a different approach. North Africa has other approaches. So the governance system is very important. Second, obviously, is how you invest in the digital transformation in a sustainable manner. It's not sufficient to invest one shot and buy computers or tablets. It's how you create a system that can help you renovate, maintenance, and of course, accompanying the evolution of technology and reaching all parts of the education system, not only urban areas, but also rural areas, not only where there is a 5G or 4G, but also where there is no G and no tech. So this is something that is very important also to consider. Third aspect and framework that we and pillar that we looked at is that you need infrastructure, and the infrastructure not only computers or tablets, it's also the Wi-Fi network, is the infrastructure that is accompanying the development of the digital transformation, is servers or cloud services, and all this infrastructure that is needed to make the digital transformation happen. The fourth lever or pillars that we have looked at is about capacities and culture. Digital transformation requiring capacitating teachers, leaders, learners with digital skills, but also a culture of transformation and change that is required, and understanding about what technology can bring, what are the limitations, and how you advance the agenda. The fifth pillar that we looked at is content, curriculum, and certifications. We have found in many countries there is a setup of learning platform, but the content is not available in local languages, for example, in education resources that are aligned with the curriculum. And that effort of investment in content and in the changing of the curriculum and in aligning the content, open education resources with the curriculum is something that is critical. But all this and these five, I would say, pillars require one important pillar that is at the center. It's about data and evidence. If policies are not based on data and evidence, then we know that these policies are built in the dark, and that leaders are flying blind when advancing the digital transformation. So these are the six pillars that we looked at, but the data and evidence are the ones that are in a way underpinning it. And last and not least, Fernando, to finish with the first intervention, all this require change management. It's not about technology. It's how you engage a change in a system, how you engage change at the school level, in the classroom, at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level. And this requires capacity to lead a reform, thinking about how you change the system, how you reform it, how you experiment, but also how you set standards, and how you manage this sometimes tension between centralization and decentralization, for example. And we have this multilateral experience, and I think the Alliance is a great platform for peer learning, for exchanging, for learning from each other and growing together, because no one has, I would say, the solution. All of us are learning, and the Alliance is the right platform to grow together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beren, and I would like to hear Mariana. Thank you, Fernando, and thank you, Beren. As a specialist in planning, I applaud this systemic approach. This is one of the things that I value the most. And as you mentioned, all of the pillars. And right in the end, you were saying, as we say here in the South, the $1 million question. We know what we have to do, but how do we do it? And this is something that this training that we're starting now is going to contribute greatly for. Because as you were saying, it's not only about the governance, it's not only about leadership. Maybe I think more of this, but than the evidence. But how to balance what's local and what's the needs on the territory with alignments that are that enable all of the territories to move forward, particularly in a region with such inequalities as we have here in Latin America and the Caribbean. For all of the territories can do the best with what they have. And now to give the word back to you, the floor back to you, Fernando, I would like to applaud that this strategy is based on moving from the hard part, infrastructure, technology, taking into account all of the elements, not only the connection or the connectivity, but also the power and electricity, some things that we sometimes take for granted, but also talking about how the all this can transform the teacher work, the pedagogical work. Thank you so much. Barem, would like to give the floor back to you if you want to react to Mariana's reaction or close your intervention, which has been so valuable for
thank
our
you
opening.
very much. And I think Mariana is right. And this week we have the Digital Learning Week at UNESCO, the Global Digital Learning Week. I know that we will have the Latin America and Caribbean Digital Learning Week end of September. But and we have the closed door ministerial meeting. And my, I would say, takeaway from that ministerial meeting really endorses what Mariana was mentioning. Most ministers were saying, we would like to do, and we are moving. But most of the question were then how to do. And I think that path of moving from a strategy to implementation is very critical, and is there where I think the context matters. Every country has its own context, its own baseline, its own capacities, its own profile of teachers, its own profile of leaders. So that context is important. I think the framework is important as a framework, but when it comes to implementation, this will have to be adapted to every context, and that's the challenge that we are facing. And the problem, maybe to finish, is that it's a moving target. I would say 2 years ago, we were not speaking about AI the way we are speaking about it today. And it's difficult to see how digital transformation will not embed in it AI dimensions in terms of competencies, in terms of the usage, in terms of privacy and security, in terms of divides. And I'm sure we'll be speaking about all the digital divides and the AI divides that we will see. And this is something that for UNESCO is central, is how we rather bridge the divide rather than increasing that divide. And it's the responsibility of decision makers, policy makers, and all the stakeholders to leave no one behind. Over to you.
Thank you, Barem. Thank you, Mariana. Now we're going to our second intervention, which is going to be by Laura Stepanovic. And she's going to focus on trying to think about the leadership, how leadership connects to technology somehow. So, Laura, the question is, considering both of the GEM reports, what are the challenges that we see on the GEM 2023 and the 2024 over governance and digital policies? Thank you very much, Fernando, for your invitation. I think Beren has really put us a great context, and I think it's not it's not coincidental that the pillars agree with the conditions that we talk about in the GEM report in technology. I want to focus on the challenges. We presented the GEM report we did it in Montevideo, in a country that has a very strong story in digital transformation with Plan Ceibal. And when we launched the report, it was very interesting that we were just leaving the pandemic and we were starting to talk about AI. All this discussion about ChatGPT came just like 3 months ahead of our publication, and we had to see what to do with that. And we talked a lot with the team what was expected from teachers and school leaders. And one of the greatest challenges is that that we identified in the report is that technology advances too quickly. One of the great challenges is the inequality in access and infrastructure, but technology changes so quickly. One of the statistics is that every 36 months change, and curriculum takes 10 years to change. So there is this this disruptor between the acceleration in technology and curriculum. On the other hand, we have our leaders and our teachers who are doing so much already. They're covering many functions, many roles. We expect them to do pedagogy, to bring digital information, to bring AI into the classroom, but they don't really have the time or the training to do that. On our technology report, we acknowledged several challenges regarding access, equity, inclusion. And we were talking about the pandemic as a turning point. But here I really connect to the DDC of the importance of this strong leadership and digital capacities and training, both for teachers and for leaders. What's school leadership? This is what we did. It is a process of social influence that increases the efforts of others to achieve a goal, which is the digital transformation in this case. What we see is that not all leaders, not all teachers, not all principals, managers have training in technology and communication capacities. They don't have resources, they don't have space for this. And what we see in Latin America is that we have to see how technology can be used for education, but also for teacher training and to distribute the capacities throughout the schools. Technology brings lots of benefits and opportunities, but what we have to do and focus on is see how we can offer education with and through technology. A report that would have been very relevant, that was published just a month ago, follows these in 3 countries, which is Japan, Korea, and China. So I would invite you to read it because it talks about how leadership can drive digital transformation. Another report that we did is how, in terms of leadership, how when we distribute different roles, we can achieve a greater digital transformation. It's important when we talk about leadership and collaboration. These are all important roles, but we have to talk about the people who are the leaders. We have different people in the ecosystems. We have policy writers, we have leaders, school leaders, we have local officials. So the technology that they use and all of the technologies that they use, they have to be based on 4 principles, which are leadership is fundamental to have a robust capacity building, but we have to ensure that they have the tools to be able to implement that on different levels. And this is what I want to end with. I think the DTC has this leadership component that is crucial and this governance component, but we also need resilience, learning, vision, empowerment, capacity, all tools that we need for the leadership and this digital transformation. Thank you so much. Laura, you might leave us the link in the chat. And also we're leaving the document of the 6 pillars that Beren talked about. So Beren, we invite you to now comment on what Laura has just said and maybe ask her a
gracias,
question.
Fernando and Laura. I think what Laura was mentioning is very critical. Is this the capacity of the system to engage in the transformation and the leadership that is required, and the capacity at different levels of the education system. And in a way, in the discussion, even that we had the last 2 days here, speaking about the digital transformation and AI, is the readiness, is how you can make the education system ready to engage in the transformation and to engage in leveraging artificial intelligence and protecting students and learners and teachers. So I think these are challenges and the capacities and readiness, if I can interpret what Laura is mentioning, and that leadership that is required is very important in this case, and the stability of the political processes in the country, in education system in particular. Laura and her team and the team in the Global Monitoring Report showed that the change in the leadership at the ministry levels is very high. The cycle of ministers is 2 years. So you need that stability. And we know that some countries that had stability across governments, there are results. Uruguay, in the case of Latin America, for example, is an example where the digital transformation policy is across ministries or cross government, or is something that remained a priority for different governments. So I think that readiness and resilience and capacities of the system at different levels is something that Laura is mentioning. And I would like really to highlight that, because I think that's a very important aspect of the reforms in education in general and in the digital transformation in particular. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barem. I just want to mention something very quickly, which is the main role, the main message is that in the center of all of the digital transformation, we have to have human beings. In the Digital Learning Week, we have talked how students, principals, teachers, they have to be in the center. Technology is a tool, but in all digital transformation, the human beings have to be in the center. There are several factors. We talk about stability, scalability, equity. There are different contexts and things that have to be taken into account. But as long as we have policies that we put humans in the center, we're going to be in a good path. Of course, we need preparation, training, stability. But what we need most is that when we have technologies, we always think about the interest of students, teachers, and leaders. So we have to think about all of the systems when we deliver this transformation to classroom. Always have to think about the well-being and the best interest of students, teachers, and directors and principals. Thank you so much, Laura. Now we're going on to the third phase of this panel with Mariana Cluselas. Mariana, to talk about our third axis or third pillar, planning, from your experience, what's the transformation, or what's the collaboration of the situational planning in designing sustainable digital policies? Thank you, Amparo. To answer this question, I will build on the last thing that Laura said, which I think is the center of planning, which is people at the center of any transformation, above all in education. So to build upon that, I would say that regarding this strategy of 6 pillars, there's a very direct link between the situational planning approach and 3 of these pillars. 3 of them are particularly key, which are the systemic approach. If we start with one part and don't focus on the other, it's not going to work. The coordination and governance and leadership, something that we talk about all the time, and we know it's key, but we never, the GEM report is an excellent report that brings experiences of leadership, but contexts are so different that it's very difficult. It's a challenge to propose a recipe. And the third is the culture and capacities. And this links to three ideas that are the basis of situational planning. One has been mentioned, which is ethics. And this applies particularly to the use of AI and the protection of students in educational systems and also of all of the people who work in education. And respect for the culture of the communities with which we're working. The second idea has to do with the wholeness and adaptability in terms of the how. And the third, which is more direct, are the capacities to put this strategy into practice. And what I'd like to highlight here with the situational planning is that it's always focusing very much in something that Beren mentioned, which has to do with implementation. We currently think of planning as the design of actions, and that just magically happens. But we know that's not true. Now we have been emphasizing a lot of the study of the science of implementation. And this makes me very glad that it's been acknowledged that this instance of implementation is part of planning, but it's not a separate phase of a linear process. It's something that is integrated, or it should be, and maybe it would work better that way, working simultaneously with the planning. And so implementation and planning simultaneously. It also considers contexts and the situation, so they are flexible, but also, as I've mentioned briefly at the beginning, states, national states, and the international community have to support that, particularly in contexts of such inequalities as our region. So we need minimal conditions for this work to be done in the territories. It's an approach that understands the complexity and the diversity of contexts and takes them as a challenge for the design of policies, but also for the implementation. So this requires that the actions we design, particularly those who are in this panel, we agree on that, but we know that the difficulty is not the what, is the how. And one thing that we know we have to leave behind is the rationale of means and ends. And we have to think about creative solutions and new solutions, maybe a case by case context or on a subnational level. Also, taking benefit of this intersectoral work. We're always used to working in different areas because this is how our governments are designed. But if we want a planning that puts people in the center, people are not divided in education, finance, technical training, and professional training. There are several questions that have to come together. So we have to consider three time frames. Short term to talk about this, to address this rotation of the turnover of authorities. The midterm to show not results but advancements, and the long term to have policies that can go beyond the changes in governments. This is it. Thank you so much, Mariana. You've brought us many aspects that start to give shape to this how, as you were mentioning. Now I would like to invite Laura to comment on your first intervention, Mariana. Thank you, Amparo and Mariana. I think we're really in an interesting narrative because we started on the pillars, where we were talking about the conditions, infrastructure, content, digital capacities. We talked about all of that based on data. And then we talked about leadership and putting people in the center. And then we talk about a tool and and how to put this into practice and the implementation. I would like to bring back two topics that I find key, which are the respect and the flexibility in context. Technology, our reports talk about very much about this flexibility. There's no technology that is a one size fits all. So we have to understand what types of technologies and what types of leaderships are good for for each context. The use of technology, from the radio up to AI, for people with different capacities and for different languages and different cultures. We have to analyze that from the research, but also from the practical point of view. So part of the challenges that we face are that we have to bring all of these recommendations that we do in the reports in to the countries, to the regions, and to the countries. And I want to connect this to this network and this alliance, which are a key initiative. So how do we bring all of these recommendations? UNESCO has an important role and a great research in these topics. So through the implementation and the IIEP that help us take all of this into practice, we have to think about how to bring this knowledge to the different contexts. So, and the last thing I want to mention is respect. So we have to respect the different realities and to consider privacy, well-being, both for students and for teachers. So context, respect, and a lot of ethics, as Barin said. Thank you so much, Laura. Go ahead, Mariana. I was anxious to, yeah. I like it very much what you said about ethics, because there is an underlying idea in the teacher in the training for planning and implementation. I will clarify this. That has to do with what you were saying, the respect. First of all, education as a human right in itself. Secondly, how to solve this tension between what's global, in a sense that everyone can get what they need, and the local needs. And there is another, I've just forgotten it, that you said just in the end. I was writing that but I just jumped the gun. So, okay, I just got it. It has to do with these practice communities and these spaces for experience exchanges that you mentioned something in Japan, China, and Korea. Maybe they don't apply to Latin America, or maybe they do. Last year, I traveled over many countries, and I realized that there are many similarities between Latin America countries and some countries in the Southeast Asia. So what we're proposing, I think UNESCO and IIEP have a key role in promoting this exchange and thinking case by case what's working. I don't want to say trying, because trying with people is a bit we're a little bit borderline on ethics, but we shouldn't think of planning as just the technical knowledge of something, but as a political practice. And this is where we stand, to put first the respect for ethics, equality, to comply with the rights for all of the people, and to go beyond just the discourse and to share what we think, bring from the political discourse to the schools themselves. So thank you very much for your response, Laura. Thank you so much, Mariana. This is the end of this segment, and I want to deeply thank Barem, Lara, and Mariana for their collaborations. The conversation has accomplished our goals, which was to analyze concrete tools for the action. As Mariana was saying, how to do it. I want to bring back 3 key ideas. First, the framework of 6 pillars of the DTC, which Barem has presented to us, not as an ideal, but as a tool for the diagnosis and for the systemic action to overcome the fragmentation of policies. Second, the evidence of the GEM reports, which Laura brought, showing that strategic leadership is a condition for a governance where technology is in serve of the pedagogy. And third, the situational planning, which Mariana showed us how the institutional capacity can allow ministries to build viable, sustainable policies. And I want to bring back these 3 words: ethics, respect, and contextualization, to have them as a guidance for our process to think about digital transformation policies. These 3 pillars, or these 3 axes, show us a way to move forward. And this is what we're going to do in this trajectory of strengthening capacities, which we're starting today. And now I give the floor back to our colleague, Fernando. Thank you, Amparo. Over this such a clear conceptual basis, I want to add that our conversation today shows us that the digital transformation is above all an issue of a strategic public policy. In the context that we were talking about earlier about AI, it makes us think about thinking and developing policies with a double responsibility, not only to reduce the gaps that we have, but also to avoid new gaps and even deeper gaps to be created. And this demands states to have their digital sovereignty, defining the path of their educational needs, and not from the technological offer, to ensure that innovation is at the service of equity. As Beren was saying, it's key that digital transformation is in itself part of the transformation of the educational systems, to connect these perspectives of a holistic mission. As Laura was saying, the time frames for technology change and for the educational system changes. This brings great complexity. The idea we have to think about leadership for this present, and being able to develop policies that get to the classroom and its planning. It's also articulating politics and policies and in implementation. So this is a series of 4 seminars. Our next meeting is going to be on September 25th, based on or focusing on governance and development of capacities. On October 16th, we're going to talk about infrastructure and pedagogical solutions, and we'll close the cycle on November 13th, talking about sustainability and financing. So with this open discussion, we're going to close this meeting, and thank you, all of you, for having been part of this from different countries in the region. And we're now going to continue with an instance for the people who are taking part in the digital talent course, which started this week within ARTIE. So for those who are part of the course, we'd ask you to remain in the room. Those of you, the general public, those who have followed us here, thank you very much for being here. And we will meet next time. We'll be back in 2 minutes.